Hello, I'm Desiree Jones, and I am blessed to be the principal of Vine Middle Magnet School. Thank you for joining us live from the YOKE studio for the YOKE Virtual Luncheon. For more than 43 years, YOKE has served thousands of students in East Tennessee. Currently, YOKE reaches out to more than 19,000 students at 31 middle schools in Knox, Anderson, Blount, Loudoun, Granger, and Jefferson counties, while training and mobilizing hundreds of local college students to be servant leaders. Another vital part of YOKE is mentoring and training scores of middle school students to become leaders and to pour back into their communities. I've seen students grow from hesitant and shy sixth graders to confident and purposeful young adult leaders in YOKE. And watching this growth is one of my favorite parts of being an educator. YOKE challenges our youth to connect with their peers and become leaders in our community. I am honored to be a part of the YOKE Luncheon this year, which will inspire you with stories of these students turned community leaders. While you're enjoying the program today, please share the event on your social media using the hashtag YOKE Luncheon. To support this important endeavor, you can give at any time during the program by clicking the Donate Now button below. Thank you and enjoy the program.
YOKE impacts middle school students by equipping passionate, faithful mentors to help those students discover their identity and purpose in Christ. Founded in Knoxville in 1977, YOKE now has volunteers serving on 30 middle school campuses throughout 5 counties in East Tennessee. These volunteers, known as YOKE folk, are recruited from local churches and colleges, trained as leaders, and mobilized in teams to serve on a middle school campus. Each week, they host an after-school club consisting of an hour of energetic and engaging activities for students. Each club concludes with a brief and relevant lesson from the Bible. YOKE camps are always a highlight for both kids and YOKE folk. Camps offer students the opportunity to try new things, interact with YOKE kids from other schools, and encourage an active and adventurous lifestyle. They also provide YOKE folk with a more focused opportunity to invest in their students. And YOKE summer adventures keep the action going when the school year ends. Whether it's rafting, hiking, kayaking, or swimming, YOKE kids get to experience the beauty of God's creation while enjoying the benefits of healthy peer and mentor relationships. But YOKE is more than just a program. YOKE is about relationships. Each year, YOKE folk invest thousands of hours in middle school students outside of structured YOKE programming. This kid time, which can include games, concerts, shopping, outdoor activities, or simply hanging out, is some of the most impactful time in these mentoring relationships. Mentoring middle school students, equipping young leaders, engaging local churches, and enriching local schools. YOKE is transforming communities one kid at a time. Won't you join us? Visit yokeyouth.com for more details.
So that brings back great memories for me. My name is Drew Freeman, and for the last 2 years, I've served as YOKE's chair of the board. Thank you to our sponsors for making this event possible, and thank you for Pilot for being our presenting sponsor and making their investment in YOKE. I've been involved with YOKE since 2000 when I was a student at Carson Newman. I volunteered for 3 years at Maury Middle School, and I've seen firsthand the impact that this ministry has both on students and on young leaders. That experience has helped shape who I am today, which is why I continue to volunteer my time and my financial support. I invite you to get involved by making a gift today by clicking the Donate Now button below. The COVID-19 pandemic disrupted our lives and routines in ways that none of us expected. Our relational mentoring ministry built on time with students and in-person meetings were restricted. I'm proud of our team and how they've adapted and continue to press forward in spite of these unprecedented challenges. Many of our clubs continue to meet on Zoom, this now common platform that most of us had never heard of a year ago. With the help of our volunteers, the team began pushing out fresh content on social media every week engaging in more than 25,000 viewers on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. Our staff and volunteers, in partnership with school districts and community partners, delivered food to families stuck at home. When school systems stopped offering meals, our YOKE teams organized food drives and continued serving their communities. During the summer break, we organized smaller, more localized events outdoors, checking temperatures, screening for symptoms, wearing masks, distancing, and sanitizing, so that students and mentors could gather safely at a time when personal interaction was so critical. School started back in the fall, but our programs have not been able to meet on campuses as we always have. But that hasn't stopped our team. They've adapted to the needs of the community to be there for kids who need us now more than ever. They've secured locations to meet off-site and outdoors, continued recruiting new volunteers, and implemented extensive health protocols to ensure the safety of our kids and leaders. This month, we also launched Tuesday Night Live with YOKE, live from our studio here in North Knoxville, encouraging and engaging students in new and vital ways. Your gift today will help ensure that this life-giving ministry continues to impact lives and transform communities. And you can give anytime by clicking the Donate Now button below. Now here's a look at how YOKE helps transform the communities that we serve.
With leadership development, we're kind of in a different area. Just the community, like I said earlier, everyone kind of knows everybody. And so we've been able to both disciple and mentor some of these kids to the point now where they're able to now pour into other kids. And so there, we've slowly been giving them leadership in the Bible study to where they're not nearly as much of a kid or a student as they are more of just an unspoken leader. I first met Zach officially probably his 7th grade year. My relationship with John Coatney, John was always just this mentor and this teacher to me. John was I think he was real instrumental in bringing Zach into YOKE, just because John has that effect on people of, you just want to be around him. And so John actually, he's the one who kind of introduced Zach and me.
My favorite thing about YOKE was the skits. Andrew and Chris and all those guys, they just made it really enjoyable. Everybody in YOKE, all the kids that I sat around, we laughed our heads off the entire time, every single week. They did awesome at that.
From there, he spent 2 years in YOKE and then became a Future Folk. And so Zach's just kind of been a part of my life since then.
My relationship with Andrew started pretty easily and unforced. Andrew's just one of those guys, he relates to people really easily, and everybody likes him. So everybody that I was around wanted to be around Andrew, even before me and him really knew each other.
Our relationship has grown more from just a YOKE folk for a YOKE kid into more of a mentorship. Even whenever he got out of middle school, it wasn't like our relationship just ended. And so, Zach's been a friend. He's been a mentor to me, even though I'm a little bit older than him. I've learned a lot from Zach. And so I'd say it's grown quite a bit.
Something that Andrew and YOKE really do amazingly is building relationships.
Andrew is just an instant-like fella. Was obviously a kid's favorite the first time he walked in the door. Put that together with his good heart and he's wanting to serve the Lord, and you've got a good prospect for leadership.
So these kids have really, developed as leaders to the point now where they're able to serve YOKE and serve the Lord. So this year we actually have a group of 12 YOKE folk. And of course, 3 of those were some of these leaders we're talking about, Zach, Bubba, and Austin, who were YOKE kids and have went through Bible study and have developed as young men, young leaders, and are now, serving in YOKE as YOKE folk.
Wow, what a great story from our friends out there in Granger County. Hey everyone, my name is Jonathan Haskell, and it's stories just like this one that make me so glad to be able to serve YOKE as its executive director. I want to thank you again for joining us today for our YOKE Luncheon right here live from our brand new YOKE studios. And thank you to our friends from the video, Andrew Hodge and Zach Cameron. Thanks for being here, guys.
Thanks for having us.
I just wanted to bring out a couple of things from your story. One of the things that I thought was so cool was your story demonstrates to me exactly how discipleship is supposed to work. I know Andrew, our founder, John Coatney, has not only recruited you for the team, but also invested in you and kind of helped prepare you for the leadership role that you have today, right?
Yeah. So John recruited me as a senior. And at that point, I didn't really even know what YOKE was. YOKE was new to Rutledge, and it started the year after I went from middle school to high school. So it just barely missed me. And so John and Helen both were real instrumental in bringing me in, because I knew that I liked middle school kids, and I knew I liked having fun. And so I had some free time I was able to serve. Over the next few years that I spent with John and Helen there, John really honed in on the importance on loving these middle school kids and showing, Jesus and how Jesus loves everybody to them. And so he was real instrumental on, making me understand that, you have to be intentional in pouring your own life out to these middle school kids.
And Zach, I know Andrew's kind of done the same thing for you, right?
Yeah, definitely. Andrew did a really good job since I was in middle school, just helping me know what God's purpose for me was, but not pressuring me, and making sure that it wasn't what Andrew wanted or what I wanted, but it was what God wanted.
So, Zach, you've gone from being a YOKE kid to now being part of the team and being one of our leaders there at the club. But the cool thing is it doesn't end there, right? There's a whole other generation coming behind you.
Yeah. When I was in 7th grade, we had the opportunity to found a Bible study. And since then, I've had the opportunity to work with middle schoolers myself and guys younger than me that were in YOKE. And I've been blessed with being able to work in YOKE even before I was a YOKE folk, and just stay working with middle schoolers and being with youth.
Something else I noticed from the story, Andrew, you said that John Coatney is just somebody that people love being around. Tell us more about that.
So John, whenever I started, he was probably closer to 68, 69 years old. And that didn't stop him.
Never too late to start having an impact, right?
Yeah, it's true. But, he was older, and yet he was still giving his all and everything he had to these middle school kids whom he may not even have known. And, that was real. It was a testimony to me, just because, I was 18 years old. And if John could give everything he had, I could give everything I had. John is just, as soon as you walk in the room, you just knew and you could tell that John loved people and he loved you. And that kind of flowed through everything that he did.
Yeah. And he's always loved middle school students. Yeah. Now, we didn't rehearse this, but Zach, I noticed in the video that you said almost word for word the same thing about Andrew. Tell us about that.
Well, your very first YOKE, when you're in 7th grade, you walk in and everybody's just drawn to Andrew. You go and
he's an attractive guy.
Exactly. So even if you don't know Andrew, Rutledge is so small that you know someone who does, or you're related to somebody. So you get there and everybody just kind of has an idea of who he is. So, the second that you're there, once you start talking to him or once you're kind of in his circle, it's just kind of addictive, and you always want to be around him and be his friend and just stay right with him.
Yeah. The reason I think this is neat is, this work of making disciples sometimes sounds intimidating. And to me, what your story demonstrates is that it really boils down to relationships and just kind of living the kind of life that people are attracted to and people being drawn to you. So I thank you guys for demonstrating that so well. Andrew, in the video, you talked a little bit about how important leadership development is to you in Rutledge. Can you tell us why?
Yeah, so Rutledge is kind of, farther out from most of the YOKE clubs here in Knoxville. And so, it's really important for us to be able to, have YOKE folk who are able to, make it to club and all those sort of things. But, the culture in Rutledge is also a little bit different, as the culture is different between each YOKE club and even each community. But in Rutledge, it's more of a tight-knit culture in the community. And, it's real easy for us to find a leader from Rutledge, and because if you do, then you're able to break down that first barrier of making a relationship with some of the middle school kids. As Zach said a few minutes ago, everyone kind of knows everybody or is related to everybody in Rutledge. And so that was kind of how, some of our yoke folk that we're getting, some of our new yoke folk we're getting now with Zach and Bubba and Austin, they've been with us since 7th grade year. And even after, we've been able to disciple them into, better Christian men, and ultimately yoke folk as well.
Yeah. So it's not just proximity, it's kind of a cultural awareness as well.
Yeah.
And besides that, it's kind of a Jesus thing too, right?
Yeah. The underlying thing with yoke is that we're able to disciple people to look more like Christ. And that's one of our goals.
Yeah. And Zach, I know that you've benefited from this leadership development. How do you see God maybe using you in the future as a leader?
Well, next year I'll be going to college, so the way that it is for me now and next year will be different in a lot of ways. But over the years, with the willing of God and the faith and obedience of John and Andrew, I've been able to realize that I'm called to ministry, and that's what I'll be doing for a long, long time. So, and hopefully I'll be able to be in yoke for a long time too. So that's just working with middle schoolers and working with youth is something that I hope to be very accustomed to.
Yeah, we hope you're going to be around yoke for a while too. So obviously this is how yoke works in Rutledge, just continuing, perpetuating that cycle of leadership development. But the cool thing is this is really how yoke works in all 31 communities that we serve, whether it's Rutledge or Vine or Farragut or Union Grove in Blount County. I always tell our leaders that the kids that we're serving today, those students that are coming to Yoke Club, they're the leaders of Yoke tomorrow. So thank you guys for demonstrating that.
Thank you.
And I thank you for all your hard work in Granger County, for serving that community. We're so happy to have you as part of the Yoke family, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
As I listened to this story, something else became obvious to me, and it made me really happy. As I listened to the story of how Yoke is working in this particular community in Granger County, I couldn't help but notice how well it demonstrated all 5 of Yoke's core values. You see, our mission statement tells you where we're going, but our core values really tell you who we are. So who are we? Well, first of all, at Yoke, we value community. We're committed to building loving, accepting community through intentional relationships. In his letter to the church at Thessalonica, the Apostle Paul said, hey, you remember us. You remember how we shared with you so much. We loved you so much that we shared with you not only God's good news, but our own lives as well. I think you heard that sense of community really come through in the Andrew and Zach stories. Number 2, we value collaboration. At Yoke, we're committed to building networks of strategic partnerships in every community that we serve. Again, looking at the life of the Apostle Paul, he talked about the importance of collaboration in 1 Corinthians chapter 3. He said, all of us up here, we're all co-workers in God's service, and you are God's field, his building. Of course, we have that vital relationship with Rutledge Middle School that makes all of this possible, but we've got a network of supportive churches in the community that provide leaders and equip and resource and mobilize them to do what they do. And those strategic partnerships are so important in every community. Number 3, we value leadership development. By now, this should be obvious, but we're committed to equipping and empowering the next generation of servant leaders. Again, looking at the life of the Apostle Paul, he told his young protege, Timothy, all these things that you've heard me say in front of all these witnesses, take those things and entrust them to reliable people who will be able to teach others also. In that brief instruction to Timothy, you see clearly 4 generations of leadership, much like we see 4 generations here in this story from Granger County. Number 4, we value stewardship. We're committed to being faithful stewards of all of the resources that God has entrusted to us. Now, obviously, When we think of stewardship, the first thing that we think of is money, but it's so much more than that. Jesus said to those who use well what they have been given, even more will be given, and they will have an abundance. So for us, we're committing to you to be good stewards of the money that you invest in Yoke, but we're also committed to stewarding our time and our talents and even the people, the relationships that God has entrusted to us, just like what you see going on there in Andrew and Zach's life in Rutledge. Finally, we're committed we value fun and adventure. We're committed to providing engaging opportunities for laughter, for new challenges, and for personal growth. Jesus himself said, I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. We believe that following Jesus should be fun. And I think you saw that clearly in this story, how much fun these guys in Granger County have, sharing their lives together and sharing in ministry. That's really Yoke in a nutshell. And I think you'll agree that through our ministry of mentoring middle school students, equipping young leaders, engaging local churches, and enriching local schools, we have tremendous capacity to transform every community in which we serve. And we'd love to have you on that team as well. You can become involved today and invest in Yoke simply by clicking that blue button just below. There you'll have an opportunity to make a one-time gift. You can sign up to make a recurring gift or even pledge to give in the future. Thank you again for joining us today for our virtual luncheon, and we certainly hope to see you again in person real soon.